Beware of vocal fry. Everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. There she is. And now on to our topic. Beware of vocal fry and other voice habits. In a previous video, we talked about finding your voice, where I talked about warming up your instrument. I gave a brief overview of both warming up your vocal cords and also warming up your mouth through various diction exercises. Rubber baby buggy bumpers, rubber baby buggy bumpers. But today I want to talk about some vocal habits that have become very prevalent in today's society and how they might be liabilities for actors. And specifically, I want to talk about vocal fry, upspeak, and filler language. Disclaimer, before I jump into this video, I do want to say that all of these habits are cultural norms, for lack of a better description, specifically within some subgroups of the population. That is to say, they are not universally bad habits. In fact, some are trendy. Instead, my overall point of this video is that as an actor, you must have more self-awareness than the average human. I mean, imagine if someone called themselves a professional guitarist and then one day looked at their guitar and said, never seen that string before. Wonder what it does. Well, your body is your instrument as an actor, so it is imperative that you learn how to tune it and how to use it. So let's say you're on a film set, and after a few takes, the director peeks their head out from behind the monitor at Video Village and says, "Hey, Matthew, great, just less vocal fry?" What would your reaction be? Would it be, "How dare you, sir, I love my vocal fry"? If so, that wouldn't be very collaborative. It's also a really weird accent that I just did. But if your reaction is, excuse me, what is vocal fry? Well, then let me give a brief description. It can be characterized as a tendency to draw out the ends of words or sentences in a low, creaky voice. The result is that the voice can sound relaxed, lethargic, even lazy. Case in point, you may recognize this face and voice as an example of vocal fry.
And out a little bit, adding more time to offer to do it. You might like that one. I lived on the outfit and needed what you want and what you get. Interesting. I don't have the middle name one. Well, Google alerts anymore on myself. I did, but I haven't in a couple of years. So Tumblr's in fact love. Yeah.
Okay, we got it. Now there are some studies that show that men have been using vocal fry for a very long time without any apparent criticism, whereas women, unfortunately, have been targeted when it comes to vocal fry as something that is a liability. Certainly that montage I just showed is meant to showcase vocal fry as something that is a nuisance or an annoyance. But here's the thing, it depends on the audience. For someone who's, say, in their 40s, they will perceive that differently than someone who is in their teens or 20s. So without picking any sides, I'll just say that vocal fry can be met with an entire spectrum of different responses, depending on the demographics of the listeners. Oh, and with a name like vocal fry, it sounds like it might be something that is dangerous or harmful to your voice. But thankfully, studies show that there is nothing dangerous or harmful by letting your voice sit down in this creaky, low energy register. And while using vocal fry might be appropriate for some roles for which you're auditioning, it needs to be something that you're aware of and therefore in control of. So if I'm auditioning for, say, a SWAT team leader or the President of the United States, it's probably not appropriate to have vocal fry. Now, the next habit that I want to talk about is upspeak. You know, when every sentence sounds like a question or even words within the sentence all have an upward lilt to them. Again, there are mixed reactions to this habit depending on the age of the listener, but suffice to say that it is pervasive in today's society. And just like vocal fry, it can be a liability. Because don't I suddenly sound less sure of myself when everything sounds like a question? Like I maybe don't even believe the things that I'm telling you, or that at least I'm trying not to be aggressive and I'm maybe coming across as passive. It can cause you to question or even believe what I'm saying. And again, that might be appropriate for the role for which you're auditioning, but you need to be aware of it because there are likely going to be roles you are auditioning for that don't need that. In fact, if you have that upspeak, it might totally change and maybe even kill your chances of booking that role because it's inappropriate. And the third habit that I would like to, highlight is like filler language. You know, like I mean, when you like add a bunch of unnecessary words to maybe fill in the like gaps or silence in your dialogue while you're talking. So if you use filler language a lot in your daily language, for instance, then when you get a script that you don't have a lot of time to prepare for, you're likely going to let some of this filler language seep into your audition without you even knowing it or being aware of it. Again, let's go back to the example of a SWAT team leader. And would this line reading sound good to you? Okay, everyone, listen up. We have a hostage situation on our hands, and so, like, we need to do this by the books because, like, I am not going to have any casualties on my watch. Now, I exaggerated by using all three of these habits, but you get the point. None of that would have been appropriate for a SWAT team leader. And let me highlight these issues from another angle. Let's say that you're a young person in your 20s, male or female, and you want to age out of those teenager roles that you are still auditioning for. You want to be presented by your agent for more mature roles that are in their mid to late 20s, maybe even their 30s. Well, then take a look at some of your past self-tapes and analyze your performance to see if you're doing any or all of these habits. But not just the performances. Also check out your slates. Because if these habits show up between cut and action, i.e. during your slate or any other supplemental video that they've asked for, it can still be a liability. Because as I said before, how these habits are received is highly dependent on the age of the listener. And if that casting director or the subsequent producers are in their 40s or 50s, then they might be turned off by those habits. So if you're on a Zoom callback with the entire producing team and they love your performance, but then during your sort of interview portion where they're just chit-chatting, if they notice that you like don't seem very confident in yourself, or your vocal fry is just making you sound disconnected or lazy, or just like you don't want to be here, then that could work against you. Because as we know, booking the audition is not just dependent on the performance, but if you are in the room, so to speak, it will have as much to do with the essence of you between cut and action. So again, if you're a 20-something who's auditioning for a late 20s role, and during this interview portion of your audition, you come across as 18 or 16 because of these vocal habits, well then, behind closed doors, when they're deciding on who to cast for this role, and it's down to you and maybe one or two other actors, you might sound or seem suddenly too young for the role. As a quick exercise, pause this video and say out loud everything that you had to eat yesterday, and see if you can do it without any of the filler language, without any of the upspeak, or without any of the vocal fry. If you need to, record yourself. You can also go back and look at your self-tapes and analyze your recent self-tapes for any of these habits. And for fun, the next time you're in a casual conversation with a friend, listen to them and see if they have any of these habits. Because as someone once said, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So if those 5 people around you all have these habits, then you likely not only have these habits, but are completely unaware of them. And again, hear me on this, it is not that any of these habits are inherently bad. No. I mean, as a man in my mid-40s, I will say in full disclosure that all 3 of these drive me bonkers. As a side note, when people add the K sound to an ing word, and they're not from an Eastern European country, that is at the very least confusing to me and sometimes drives me nuts. When you say, you're going to go running, or I'm going to be cooking dinner tonight, where is that K sound coming from? Who is teaching people to add a K sound to the end of ing words? But I digress. Because even though I have my own personal opinions about these habits, I do need to leave space for the fact that each generation is allowed and encouraged to have their own sort of cultural norms. But I stand behind my original thesis, which is that as an actor, you must become self-aware, more self-aware than the average human, so that if a director, a decision maker, calls you out on one of these things that is cultural, that is optional, that is not something that you were born with and therefore can't control or get rid of, you need to be able to turn it off when necessary. Because when you do become so familiar with your instrument such that you can tune it to what is necessary, what the needs of the environment are, i.e., when you're on set, you'll be so much more confident when you do get direction. So make sure you've taken time to invest in learning your instrument. This topic could definitely be unpacked further, but I do fear that if I did it, I would maybe ostracize those who are in the cultural subgroups that tend to do these habits the most. So I'll leave it at that, and if you want to continue the conversation, please drop a comment or question below. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on, set.